Right, well, thanks for joining me today on this blustery and wet morning. Today I'm going to be giving you my Osprey Exos 48 backpack review. I'm going to give you a realistic review of the Osprey Exos 48. There are some things you need to be aware of with it. It is not perfect, but it is a very good backpack. So there might be a couple of features that might be a deal breaker for you, or there might be some features that you really love about it that will make it work just for you. Okay, if we look at the outside of the pack, the first thing I want to point out to you are these side pockets. So this for me is one of the really strong features of this pack. They're particularly good because as you get to the bottom here, they get wider. And it feels as if they've been designed to take two things. So in here I've a set of two 10mm poles. They fit in completely straight. Here, where the backpack touches the back of you, you've got an access pocket. There's enough space to easily store a 1 litre Nalgene bottle that can be tucked away in the side pocket. And the good thing with this is you can access it whilst you're walking and put things back. And it's even got a little pull loop on here to pull the side out. One of the updates they've done on the recent model here is that they've improved the material on the outside, but the pockets are still super stretchy and really usable. I must say I really like this feature because it really does allow you to load up the sides of the backpack and keep the weight relatively low down too. Now on this side as well, you also have the attachment point for your walking poles, your trekking poles, which will attach to the elasticated loop that you've got on the shoulder strap. So you can put the walking poles on the side if you want to do any scrambling, or if you just want them out of the way for a while so you can use your hands. And the pocket on the other side is exactly the same. It's very large. You can see I've got another 1 litre Nalgene bottle on this side, and there's plenty of space and you can easily get something else in. Now along the sides here you have the compression straps where you can adjust the amount of pressure by pulling on these toggles at the bottom, tightening up the side of the rucksack, and these can be looped inside the pocket or to the outside. So on my backpack, I've done the outside on this side because I want to support my tripod on this side and be able to pull the legs in. And if you look on the opposite side, I've routed it through the inside because I want them out of the way and I want constant access to my main water bottle. So for me, these side pockets are a really strong feature of the backpack. Now coming on to the shoulder straps. The shoulder straps themselves are a really strong material. They're not as heavy duty as you'd find in, let's say, the Zenith 88 or on my Fjallraven pack. But on the other hand, they are really comfortable, and I don't have any problems carrying a reasonable weight in this pack. Now the sternum strap on the front is adjustable. It will actually slide up and down all the way along here on both sides, which is really useful. So the straps themselves have nice little attachment points here. You could put a carabiner onto them if you want to, like this. Now the waist padding itself, one thing to note here is there isn't very much padding at all on the waist belt. I don't find that that's a problem. I thought it would be, or it might be, and it just really hasn't been an issue. I'm surprised at that, but there it is. It seems to have been okay. One thing you'll notice though is there are no hip belt pockets, and I think that that's a definite downside on the pack. Most reviews you'll see on this pack will state the same, and it is a little bit annoying that it doesn't have them. However, you could easily use this space here where I've got the Nalgene bottle in to put some sort of container or pouch that could hold numerous different things, and in my opinion I'd rather have these stretchy pockets than any hip belt pockets. It would be a good idea to have on this side some sort of thing with any snacks or whatever you want to have available to you, and then it works really fine because as you can see from the other side you can still load the side pockets almost normally while still fitting the volume of a 1 litre Nalgene bottle into them. So that kind of negates the issue of the lack of hip belt pockets to some degree. Now whilst we're here, I'm going to talk briefly about the back system that it has on it. It has a metal wire that runs through here, and it's very strong, it's very sturdy, but the padding here, which is called Air Speed, I think it's called, keeps the backpack slightly away from you. And I'll come onto that again in a moment about the effects that has. But it's a very comfortable system and it molds to your back really easily. Something to notice though with the backpack is that the height of the shoulder straps isn't adjustable. There's no way to move this panel up and down at all, and I haven't found that to be a problem. I thought it might be, it isn't. It just seems to fit. I don't know how they do that. There's, I think, some give in this material, and it just seems to work. You can also feed the hydration hose through at this point too on the backpack and hook it up to one of the shoulder straps. Now on the top of the pack, the lid is detachable. There are clips here which you can undo to take the top brain lid off if you want to have that in a tent with you, or if you want to detach it completely. On the top here you've got these little loops here which you can attach things to. You could make a system with some paracord to tie down a jacket or something onto the top if you wanted to. You could probably do that quite easily. Now the lid here has one pocket, and it's a large pocket, and you can really fit a lot of stuff in there. Coming on to the back of the pack here, just a few little features for you as well. There's a little handle here which you can get your fingers into if you want to lift the pack or move it around in any sort of way. On the back we've got a stretchy pocket here, which is very, very good. You can really get a lot of stuff into it, and it's got the usual clip which you can use to compress the pack a bit, but this is very stretchy. You can get quite a lot of stuff into it. The older model had the stretchy material all over it, and the newer one hasn't, but it's in order to make it stronger. So the new pack should be stronger. One thing I do when I put things into the back panel here is I have a little carabiner onto this loop, and the reason I do that is because I want to be able to attach certain things like my poles and peg bags in case, let's say, you fall over or something. I don't want those things. And on the back here you also have the ice axe attachment points. For one ice axe, it's only on one side. Also at the bottom you have the straps for putting a tent or sleeping mat on the outside. The way they work is it's one cord that pulls through, and that's not quite as convenient. It's a little bit annoying, but you can tighten it up on both sides still. But because it pulls through like this, it's not as easy to use as the normal straps you'd have on most backpacks. Now one thing you'll have probably noticed on this pack as well is there is no other entry. There's no zip, for instance, on the back here. There's no zips down the sides. It is only top loading. Now the lid just clips in here like most backpacks do. I'll open it up and we'll take a look inside. First thing you'll notice on the inside is that there's a nice pocket, the key attachment, and space to put a reasonable number of things inside the lid. Now if you do decide to detach the top lid, what it has underneath is another flap which you can use to keep the contents of the pack drier. Just gives you some protection. One thing that happens sometimes with these packs is that it's easy to mix up which clip is which. Because this one hangs down lower, you can end up attaching it to the rucksack, and instead of the lid, putting the rucksack on, realising that you've done the wrong one and having to take it off again. So the thing to do with this is to notice that these clips, there's a little pocket here, and if you take this and push it sort of inside out, it tucks it away. Do the same on the other side if you're not using this, and then it just becomes a flap. Okay, it has the usual drawstring here. Now one of the things you'll see here on this pack is that there's a little clip here, and the point of this clip is actually to go through the hydration pack, the Osprey hydration pack. This is a 3 litre one inside. What that means is that it just holds it in place. On the inside of the bag there isn't much to it other than it's just a long bag, but there's some things, and you have the regular compression straps as well, which clips in here to pull everything in at the back. It's a good compromise between lightweight and strong design, and having enough features as well. One thing that Osprey is really famous for with their backpacks is that they put a lot of features into them. With the Exos, they have kept a reasonable number of those features. It definitely feels like an Osprey pack, but it has been stripped down and stripped back in order to bring the weight down. Now the weight of the pack is just under 1.2 kilos, which I think is just over 2.5 pounds, so it's a fairly lightweight pack. It certainly wouldn't class in the ultralight, would be one step above that. This pack, I think, is for people that are moving away from having, let's say, the 70 litre or 65 litre backpack. But this leads me on to some of the good points and some of the bad points with this backpack. The first negative for me is that the pack itself has a slight wedge design like this. It doesn't go straight down like a tube like most backpacks do. It has a slight angle like this inside, and that's actually inside the pack. So if you had something that was supposed to go in, let's say that filled the inside of the backpack, it would have to go in and then do a slight turn. It's not a deal breaker, but there is that issue there slightly. And I think the reason they've done that is to make sure that the pack doesn't sit too far away from you higher up. It edges back in again. I haven't found it to be a problem. I've tried different items in, I've loaded it in different ways and it hasn't been an issue. There are some balance issues associated with this backpack. For me, on one hand, this is a really well balanced pack potentially, but also it can be a really badly balanced backpack too because of this design. The fact is with this backpack is it sits away from you. As you've seen with the air speed system, it sits away from you. That's generally a good thing. I don't think it's an issue and it doesn't feel like it's a problem as long as you pack your backpack properly. So one of the other negatives with this backpack is that you have to pack it right for the way it's designed. I find it needs to have more of the weight low down in it, and that means that you're limited in some ways to how you pack. But if you get the packing right, I find that it's a fantastically balanced pack, but you do have to balance it properly and you have to do that work to find out what system works for you. I've seen some people online say that it can feel top heavy, it can feel like it's a little bit off balance, and I would agree with those comments, but it depends on how you pack it, because if you pack it correctly, it feels compact and snug and really stable. If you get it wrong, it feels top heavy and a bit wobbly. Another problem with the wedge design it has is that sits in exactly the point where the hydration pack is. So whilst it puts more pressure on the hydration pack, it actually makes it hard to get it in and out. Even if there's nothing in the pack, it's a little bit tricky. I don't think that that's, again, a massive deal. I think that the reason they're doing that wedge shape is in order to improve the balance of the pack overall. Whilst we're speaking about the shape of the pack, one thing that's really noticeable as well on the inside is that it's more voluminous at the top than it is at the bottom. And whilst the pack likes to be loaded more heavily at the bottom with this design, you're limited again for space. But I've found that it doesn't work too badly as long as you take that into consideration when you're packing it. Speaking of the space on the inside, I found with the pockets on the outside being so good that I haven't had to fuss around trying to rearrange endlessly to pack the inside of it, given the limitations that the pack has internally. I haven't actually found it to be a problem at all. In fact, I've been really surprised about how much I've been able to get inside the pack, and I find that when I go away I can actually get my tent inside the backpack. As long as I keep the poles on the outside, I can get the tent itself actually on the inside, which I like because it keeps things closer to your back, it keeps the centre of gravity closer to you, and that's worked really well. The space available doesn't feel like a 48, it actually reminds me more of my Kestrel 68. Another thing with the pack is it's narrower at the bottom than it is at the top. Now you can still get a reasonable amount into the bottom, it's just not a problem, and I wouldn't let this worry you, but I do feel like I need to point it out. You can pack accordingly. I've never had any problems fitting things in and successfully packing the bag. I've always managed to do it. The other thing to note with it is there's no rain cover included, and I'm not going to bother with one. I use dry bags, and this kind of pack doesn't really seem to hold a lot of water when it gets wet. I'm not going to bother with a rain cover with it. I'm just going to leave it and let it get rained on and just go with it like that. So now to come on to the positives. Obviously the weight is very, very good. To get these features, to get the ability with these compression straps, the lid, the way the whole thing's designed, the comfort level that it has, it's a very, very comfortable pack. I think for that weight it's fantastic. The next real positive for me is the price point. The price of this pack is really good for what it is, and I think you get a lot of bang for your buck with this pack. Now this pack can carry a good weight. It really sits well in the 8 to 15 kilo range. I would say that it feels like what it's designed for. Very, very good at that. And my last kind of point with this is if you're moving down from the larger packs, a 65 or 70 litre kind of range pack, into something that's more like the 50 litre range, I think you're going to be really pleasantly surprised with this pack. I think you're going to really enjoy it. As you remove some kit that you no longer need and you downsize slightly, having a smaller pack like this is a really nice change. And even when you're in your tent and you've got your vestibule and the bag itself is smaller in the vestibule, you start to notice those benefits. And having a smaller pack on you with less in it brought my pack weights down from something like 25 kilos, believe it or not, down to went to 18 and so on. And then now when I use this pack, it's around 10 kilos, and then I have some photography gear on top of that, and it carries that brilliantly. I think that's the range that it's designed for. I think it's exactly designed for that. Anyway, that was my review of the Osprey Exos 48 backpack. I hope you liked it. Please like and subscribe. I'm going to do a full loadout on this for different trips that I do as well, so you can see what I'm putting in it and how I'm packing. So it'd be great if you subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.